We have been dating for almost 5 years now, and we've been married almost a year, a couple of weeks. We met on online dating. We're an online dating success story. We had a couple of phone calls before we met, and actually we had one phone call, I think, and that went really well. And then we did meet for dinner. And I had this amazing email that I opened up while I was about an hour before I was going out to dinner. And it was so I thought, I have got to meet the guy who wrote this email. It was this long email about, I forgot to ask how I should dress. And it was, we were going to Macaroni Grill. And so, but it was just, your sense of humor came out, and it was this long thing. I mean, literally he gave me choices all the way from a tuxedo, and he goes, yes, I do own one, to, I don't remember, it was like a wife beater and jeans or something silly. And it was absolutely every option in between.
She was smaller than I expected.
Gee, that's a surprise.
The first thing we'd like to do is have everybody just introduce themselves real quick, and on a scale of 1 to 5, just let us know your experience with online dating, just how experienced you are.
Hi, I'm Leah, and on a scale of 1 to 5 with online dating, I would give myself a 6.
Hi, I'm Brian. On a scale of 1 to 5 on online dating, I think I'm a 2.2.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I have a ton of experience with online, like every app you can imagine. And I have my preferences too, so 5.
Hi, I'm Scott. I'd say, well, recently I'd say 0.
Okay.
Because I haven't really done online dating in the last 6 years. Prior to that, I would give myself a 20.
My name is Wendy, and I'd say a 3, but I haven't used any of the apps lately. And even when I was more of a dabbler than a committed, use the tool to have it work.
What are your experiences in general about online dating? And also, if you have any general question about the field, please feel free.
I think that every app or online site has a stigma associated with it in some way. Like there's something that it's like it has a label, right? So there are ideas about each site.
Definitely.
And then that kind of influences my approach to each one. And I was really disappointed with the ones that were supposed to provide me with the long-term relationship because they were giving me terrible matches. I'm like, I won't even look at this. Like, just based on the profile photo, I am not interested. How is this person matching with me?
One of the things we really believe is to present your authentic self. And you can't do that if you are trying to cater to a specific crowd to impress that certain person. We also believe in a nuanced art and science approach to present your best self. So some things you're going to want to keep in mind are always have a close-up of your face as well as a full body shot.
But my experience has been that, and I've spoken to male friends about this, I must match, if I were to get on right now and go through, I click like on about 5, 10, 15, 20 people. Within an hour, I'm gonna have 5, 10, 15, 20 matches. And then crickets. And I'd love to hear more about what you guys think about this phenomena. I had a male friend who said, in his opinion, and he's in a committed relationship, but he said in his opinion he feels like, and not to bash guys, but that guys are just clicking to see what they could get.
I just quickly will say that be the chooser. Somebody's just trying to add up numbers or see who they can. But if you write that thoughtful message, if you present yourself authentically, and you're going towards those right people, that you're gonna get that two-way communication. And it's not worth wasting your time with people until you do.
To mine also, like the niche ones, the websites, especially for you, a particular demographic or a particular interest. I don't know, like dog lovers or single dads and stuff like that. Those are more, you're gonna have a captivated audience that will share that same thing with you, that it's very valuable for you. All right, so you know that there are different steps in the online dating process. So the 4 C's plus 1 is that. So let's define what the C's are. So the first one is create. Create your profile. Eye-catching, authentic, powerful profile.
I'm a very what you see is what you get person. There are no surprises or hidden agendas.
I'm easygoing, a great cheerleader. I'm looking for a partner who cares about character and trust.
I am a pretty straightforward and to the point, but with tact kind of guy.
Does a James Taylor concert move you? Do you agree that the Hollywood Bowl is the worst place to get to, yet one of the best places to be at?
I am looking for my person to share all aspects of my life.
There you go.
What do you really like about that?
Yes.
It's my personality. It's at my age group, which I'm looking for someone in my age group. I'm not looking for somebody 35 years old. I'm 54.
One thing that struck me is there's a passivity to some of this, and
What?
some of just kind of passive aggressive.
It's a bit about myself, and I do believe the best part of my life and the best part of my romantic life is still ahead.
I'm curious if the questionnaire that we had provided before was any help with
How's
that.
No.
I'm mentioning drama. I like the way the drama light, but drama is just such a charged word, and as soon as you mention words like that, it gets them thinking about their own drama. If you, in earlier parts, and especially in that self-summary, spend a little bit of time discussing, you know, it doesn't have to be more than a couple of sentences.
This is actually saying this is what I'm looking for in this, or
Yes.
I look at the question like you should message me if you have some of the same similarities I do, and that's where I would have left that.
I really like what you said about drawing the picture holding hands with somebody, something that is more of a narrative, more than to complement those questions that you have over there as well.
And bonding with that someone special. Boom, there.
Do you want to read that sentence to us?
I am true to myself and others, a loyal partner and friend who loves romance and bonding with that someone special.
Boom. All right, so the next step will be curate. Choosing your matches. What do you think about that? Because that is a very challenging sometimes task to do.
This is where I get a little businessy, where I start to play the numbers game, because when I first went online, I remember being overwhelmed by messages and feeling like I needed to respond to everything, like, oh, he took the time to send me a message. And then I started to feel like if I do that, I'm going to be spending a lot of energy on things that aren't going to end up being a fit.
So I'm glad that you both expressed some experience in those, and I want to go back again to the definition of the curate. It's like filtering. You actually being active to filtering your matches. Like, for example, that is a really good way to filter those matches, the match percentage, for example. So in this step, when you are looking for your matches and curate, finding those matches, we recommend you to actually be the chooser. Instead of being more passive in getting some messages, be actually proactive and in control of your love life.
What we're reading is what someone wrote. We don't know what the truth is until we get to know somebody. You said you played tennis when you were 5, you put you were a tennis player. We don't know that till we get to know you and say, gee, I've been with you for a year, I haven't seen you pick up a racket, or do you even have a racket? So it's what we'd like to believe we are, but we're gonna learn about people when we get to know people.
What you're doing is you're setting yourself up for the best chance of success when you have that in-person interaction. And everybody says, well, you can't replace that, and that's true. However, you have a better idea of who someone is from a profile and a few messages than you do from sitting them next to them at a bar, or going to the bank and seeing the cute redhead, or having your mom say, oh, I have this friend who is looking for somebody. It can be that way, and that's where being the chooser really comes into play. If you're proactive and you're seeking that, that's where the words really become meaningful.
I'm looking for a guy who's ready to settle down, who already has figured out what he wants to do with his life, career-wise, who's intelligent and funny. I know, like, some men get annoyed when you're like, I want you to be funny, you know, and like, not every guy is funny, but humor has different levels, so just like my kind of funny.
So I guess my next question would be, if you want a committed, lifelong, everlasting love relationship,
Why are you using Bumble?
And you're using the more apps that are either for friends or kind of that immediate nature. I see that there's some disconnect there. And have you used other more robust dating sites in the past?
Well, I want to address what you just said first, though. But what I found is that a lot of entrepreneurial types and creative types are on Bumble, which was why I leaned toward that.
Sure.
Because I was like, oh, these are people who are kind of like doing their own thing, and so they get it. And that's what I'm doing too. So I'm like, okay, we're already in that mindset together.
So they have the characteristics you're looking for, but are they looking for the same thing? And the tendency with the apps is that it's not that case.
What I notice a lot of people do with their profiles is they make it about them. So I wear high heels, for example. So I have a username, High Heel Licious. A username, a profile that appeals to the person you want to reach.
Okay.
So it's like when you're going fishing and you put bait on your hook, you're not going to put the bait on that you want to eat. You're going to put the bait on of the fish that you want to catch.
Okay.
So that's one aspect of what we're going to do. So when you're thinking of a username, think of the kind of guy that you want to reach and what would appeal to him. At the very top of your profile, the first thing that people read, that has to be what's the most important thing that you want people to know about you, that will resonate so strongly with the guy you want in your life. He's going to notice that right away, say, oh my God, I'm in the right place. Who is this woman? Now, we're narrowing, from all the guys who might be attracted to, the good-looking woman that you are, to the woman that, the guys who appreciate music and a good-looking woman, to the guys who appreciate spirituality and having a service-oriented mission, to the guys that would also love large dogs.
Yeah.
This is great.
See how that's actually really, really specific, and that's going to be really hard to find. And I really think there's going to be something that I'm going to have to compromise on then.
The third C will be communication. How do you communicate with your matches? Those that you are actually, that are aligned with what you're looking for.
This to me does not feel like success. This just means that I turned heads, and that's entirely insufficient.
So if that's not the problem, like you mentioned, then let's go to the messages better, because remember that we were talking about 4 C's, and maybe this C, which is the communication part, we can maybe work with that one instead of the creation of the profile.
With communication, that really struck me was we were talking about just yesterday not being generic, not having those cliches, and some of it's more obvious, but you can see the people that are filtered out. Most of your matches have given you 1 or 2 words. They have nothing to give you, so they're not even worth responding to. So we'll be able to focus more on the people who are, as far as that goes, for sure. You still want to be the chooser. You still want to be the one searching the profiles, and it's actually better to spend your time looking for people, maybe checking out a couple that seem interesting and in that way. But I think a big concern with online dating in general, especially with women, is that they get so many messages that they're spending all of their energy reacting to those messages instead of actually going out there and seeking who they want to find.
So like this one, thank you for stopping by and viewing my profile. So he showed up in my neighborhood. I enjoyed your profiles. You seem like a grounded, mature, spiritual woman with many interests and important qualities and interests. How are you this evening? Hope your week's going well, and then his name. So I appreciate that he said hi and that he's got this.
And he named particular
things
about you,
And I will say, from your answers on our questionnaire that we had you fill out previously, that is what we got from you. So that means that you're taking what you think of yourself and portraying it that way to the point that somebody else is responding to those specific elements. He doesn't get specific, but he does mention, qualities that you have that are going through that process. So I believe your profile is well on the right track. The other thing you're going to want to do, and what I noticed between the way you filled out the questionnaire and what we were speaking of yesterday, is that screening out process. So at first, you might have a conversation with somebody. It might be going well, but then at that 3 to 5 messages at that 2-week mark? Is it staying online? Is it doing those things where he's after work and he just wants some, but it's not really going anywhere? And that's a really nice timeline for you to go, okay, this is where we're at. And what we're gonna do now is either move it on to the next step or be done with it. Because if they're not willing to move it on to the next step by then, you're probably dealing with one of those people who wants to keep it online, and then you're wasting your energy, your emotion, and not spending that valuable time on the people that you should be spending that time with.
And then the 4C will be the connect. How do you get from the communication part to meeting your matches in person?
Like, I literally would rather just, if we've had 2 or 3 messages, let's set up a coffee, let's set up a lunch, and still communicating through the message app before I give out my personal phone number.
I actually think that that's more of a waste of time to jump in and meet that person if you haven't already established a rapport. So for me,
Well, I mean, after a couple messages, like on, on
like,
the
I want a
site.
message
Yeah.
on the app or on the platform, whatever it is, then take it to regular texting,
Yeah.
like on the regular phone, which I use a Google Voice number so that, you know, whatever.
Okay, so they don't
And-
have your number.
Yeah, and then have a phone call because voice is really important to me.
It's the wide, wonderful world of video chat. You get a better impression of somebody. If it's moving along nicely, it brings you into a more intimate place than a phone call.
So
And there's not a whole lot that can be faked.
Another dimension that you need to be aware of in your profile to be successful is be succinct. Nobody wants to read a novel. So the tone is very important because it's gonna show dimensions of you, who you are. So let's look at the pictures that you have at Bumble. I'm curious to know, why did you pick those pictures?
I thought that it would be important to have a headshot and then also a full body shot,
Okay.
which is what we spoke about earlier.
I like your hair there.
So that's just a normal headshot of mine.
Sure.
This was a candid photo that was taken of me at a dear friend of mine's, her wedding. This was just a selfie.
Okay.
I think a lot of people do that.
I will say
Other
it's
things.
quite a seductive picture. To me, it doesn't scream, I want a picket fence and
No,
a
it
husband
doesn't.
and a couple of kids with a dog running
No,
around.
it doesn't. I don't think that you need to dress that way or look that way in order to have those needs and wants. And so I've met plenty of like highly creative people who don't appear as though they should have a white picket fence, but they absolutely want that.
But even less than what you're wearing or anything like that, just the attitude that you're presenting,
that
the person who's
That's
going to
like
be
come
attracted
hither.
to
That's
that.
a come hither look. Okay, I totally understand what you're saying. And that would explain a lot. And then this, I want people to know that I have a past of rock and roll and that I used to have a band and that I used to run around on stages. And this photo actually gets a lot of traction.
Personally, I think this is an awesome picture. I think it expresses a lot of attitude. Another limitation of an app like this is you can't put a caption on it. So if you were able to use one of the other sites and captioned it with something, my badass past, and put the year 2008 or whatever that was, now you're putting a time and place on that. So you're showing a side of who you were and hopefully are again. And at the same time, you're kind of putting perspective to it.
I thought about that yesterday when you were talking about the agnostic
Yeah.
system, and I was like, ooh, congruent. Like, no, there are a few outlier photos on there, but I do that purposely so that whoever's looking at it knows that I have sides to me.
Which is fantastic, but it's because this isn't the far side of that, and this one's in the middle, and then there's ones on the other side that make this one go further along, and all of a sudden is viewed in a different way and kind of completes a different picture. And it is kind of congruent, but is it congruent to wanting a long-term committed relationship? And is it congruent to finding someone and attracting someone who also wants that? Okay, Leah, you mentioned something quite interesting to me yesterday, and I'd like to follow up with that.
Okay.
You said that you find it easier to have a cup of coffee with somebody than you do to exchange your phone number or have an email or a text situation. Could you please elaborate?
It's interesting because when I went home and reviewed my profile last night, I actually pretty much say that. It says, let's meet up for an hour or so and see if there's chemistry and go from there, which is basically saying, let's have that job interview.
Exactly.
let's have that coffee meeting, you know, and that's something I do with my crowdfunding clients, with my side business is, you know, we meet for coffee for an hour and strategize, you know, we have a strategy session. So that's kind of like this mode I've gotten into. But then on the other hand, I feel like I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours of my life I can trace back to phone conversations with men that went nowhere.
And it's really important to remember that the language you use on your profile says a lot about who you are and what you're looking for.
And I have a list of knots. I start off with a list of knots.
And I guarantee you a good chunk of people see those and move on without reading anything else. And the self-summary is by far the most important part. It's the first thing they see. That's pretty much your headline or your title.
Yeah.
And from what I know of you, you're a pretty optimistic person who has lots of different sides of you. And if we took the not looking for a hookup, what would be the alternative?
I'm looking for a real connection.
Awesome.
If you're not looking for a boy toy, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for a partner.
But most of us has multiple dimensions, so probably we'll have a more one tone that is more predominant, and which are the other ones that follow. So just keep that in mind for you to also kind of like weave your profile, right? The tonality.
And it's also a great way to check if you're writing down what you want. You know, start with a purpose. Do I want to make this guy laugh? Do I want to make her smile? Am I melting her heart? All those things are things you want to think about before you even put a piece of word on the paper.
It's not only that inspired another person that is reading it, it's that inspires you. What you want to portray or convey in your profile is a very well-rounded person. Of course, with different dimensions, different interests, and complexity. But what is important for you? What is the priority? Okay, so it's the congruency also.
You know, and that's the beauty of that first date. That's how we felt, actually. Was I understood why I felt the way I did before I had met her.
Oh my God!
You know.
Okay, start.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Spangler, and this is my husband, Jerry McQuay, and we've been married just over 2 years. Well, so, you know, I had some of these because I am professional. I had some of these kind of rules, and one was that, you know, you meet for coffee or a glass of wine and not for dinner. And I remember that Jerry, I believe you called me and you said, well, why don't we just have dinner? And I thought, well, I don't usually do dinner, but okay. He said, I don't usually do dinner either, but it, you know, I feel like this could be, yeah, it felt right. So I was sitting at the table and I could see right by the door and in the bar, and I could see Jerry walk in. He actually bounced in because he has real apparent energy. And what he did was, you know, he gave me a hug. He held me back and looked at me and said, you're lovely. And then immediately asked me a question about myself. So those three things, the energy, the compliment, and the question, I'd never experienced that before. So I thought, this guy, I've got to really pay some attention to him.
She hides well with makeup. She tries to lie, she's too good for that. The storm inside is quiet.